Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. Sir Walter Scott, 1808. This is from a poem that this guy wrote, Scotsman. And yeah. So, how does this apply to the stuff that we're dealing with today? Let's talk about that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's the Viking 1 orbiter. So this thing came out back in 1975, and apparently they launched this, the Viking 1. So, you know, normally we would understand that there is a Viking 2 as well. The Viking 2 was the first Mars lander, right? The first one to touch ground on Mars and be there and view. Let's take a look at it. All right, so here's a perspective from the Viking 2 Mars probe, right? Sitting on the terrain of Mars and just looking out at the expanse. All orangey looking. That's Mars. Here's an outside rendition of the Viking 2. That's Saddam Hussein. That's the CGI of the Viking 2. That's Carl Sagan alongside the Viking 2. Right? Carl Sagan was one of the world's best, like, astrophysicists and stuff like that. He died in the 90s. He had a show back on PBS way back in the day, if you guys are familiar. It was like Carl Sagan's Universe or something like that. Now, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson has basically started running that show. Two very well-known astrophysicists, physicists / astrophysicists and stuff. Right. This is Jupiter, right? This is Jupiter to the right, okay? You see the zones and the belts, and then you see the famous red spot of Jupiter, which is actually in white on the bottom right. And then you have on the left side, that thing with the halo around it is Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter. Apparently it's one of the moons of Jupiter. Okay, so here are two different views of Jupiter. You've got Thebe, Metis, Europa. Oh, apparently Jupiter's got a bunch of different moons, right? Cool. This is taken by the Webb telescope. This was done a few weeks ago by the Webb telescope. Apparently from the Earth, the Webb telescope is 1,000,000 miles away. Some people would say 1.5K away, 1.5 kilometers away, which actually like tallies up to like 900 million miles and change, right? What's interesting is, do you see how perfect Jupiter looks? A perfect sphere, a perfect ball. Even the moons, to a degree, are like perfect little marbles alongside this huge basketball of a planet, right? Jupiter, huge. You could fit like 100 different Earths and stuff like that inside of Jupiter, apparently. I just find it strange. Jupiter being, let's see, Mars. Yeah, Jupiter being the fifth planet, the fifth planet from the sun, right? After Mars, and Mars, which is after us. But I don't know if you guys recall, but between Mars and Jupiter, right? Jupiter being the next planet over, is an asteroid belt. So I wonder how in the hell we managed to see Jupiter so clear through all those asteroids. I'm just wondering, because look, I'm not that smart. I just want to know, that's all. Maybe someone can educate me. That's one. Two, how perfect a sphere Jupiter is. I just find that odd, because isn't it the Earth that's supposed to be like shaped like a football, or pear-shaped? Apparently, like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, it's supposed to be pear-shaped. But here's Jupiter, a much bigger body, and it's a perfect sphere. Like a dang basketball, zones, belts, and all. And then you could see the perfect red spot of Jupiter, not like it's been rotating or anything like that. So I'd like to know what perspective the Webb telescope was at in order to capture such an image of Jupiter's Jupiter's zones, belts, a red spot, which is white, and the moon. I'm sure that the white red spot might be a camera thing. I don't know. They might say, infrared or whatever. I don't know. They'll have an excuse for it, I'm sure. Let's go back to this. So we totally forgot about this. The Viking Probe, 1975 and its run was for 8 years, 75 to 83. This thing was in the air. You had a probe in the air, and then you had it working in tandem with or you had the orbiter in the air. You had it working in tandem with the probe on the ground. We totally forgot about it. Nobody discusses it. Nobody talks about it. But we also have a Mars rover right now. Bear with me. I'm getting there. Jupiter from Earth is 405 million miles away. So with the probe being 1 million miles from Earth, we subtract 1 million miles. So it's 404 million miles from the James Webb Space Telescope. I called it a probe. Excuse me. So it's 404 million miles away from the James Webb Space Telescope. I don't understand how the James Webb Space Telescope can capture such a beautiful, this is picture perfect view of Jupiter and its moon, right? Europa, Thebes, and Metis, right? How it can capture those, but it can't do a 180, a pirouette, and look back at the Earth. I don't understand. The Earth is 1 million miles away. It doesn't make any sense to me how it can't capture the Earth and the moon. Because apparently it could capture Jupiter and its moon or moons, but it can't get Earth and its moon. Please make that make sense to me. I don't get it because it's less mileage, right? And with that, not only is it less mileage, but it should show a shorter distance, right? It should show a shorter distance. So the Earth should appear a little bit bigger depending at how it decides it wants to magnify the view of looking at Earth. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I've used telescopes, but not in space. I've used telescopes on Earth. None of these planets look like this, right? So it doesn't make any sense to me how we can capture such a perfect view of Jupiter like this. I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me. This is Proxima Centauri. This is one of the planets that the James Webb Telescope captured. Proxima Centauri. This is the man who found it. His name is Mr. Etienne Klein, a French scientist. But here's the crazy part. It turns out Mr. Klein found an issue with this, and he came out and apologized to his followers on Twitter and said, hey, I'm sorry, by mistake, I posted this as Proxima Centauri captured by the James Webb Telescope, but this is a slice of chorizo. Chorizo is sausage, right? It's a piece of sausage. I don't eat pork, but apparently it's really delicious. But a lot of his fans and followers thought that this was Proxima Centauri. He said that. This is him, a funded scientist, a scientist that gets his money from grants, government grants, privatized folks, and stuff like that. I want you guys to think about this, because when he put this out on Jump Street and said that, hey, this is Proxima Centauri, and then he flipped it and said, hey, my bad, this is a piece of sausage. Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think that was a mistake, or do you think that perhaps he was trying to tell not only his followers, but the rest of us something? Now, we have to keep in mind, folks, that a lot of these astrophysicists, these physicists and everything else, this is what they went to school for, whether they believed it or not, right? That a lot of the stuff that we see as far as our images are concerned, and what the government and the media decides they want to give us from these quote-unquote telescopes and probes and everything else like that, these guys, probably went into the field believing it. And some of them probably still do. But some have their wits about them. Like Mr. Klein over here, right? And he can tell you, yeah, that's a piece of sausage. To the untrained eye, they would look at that thing and they'd be like, oh wow, that's a ball of gas burning at approximately, it looks like 45 million degrees Celsius. And, you know, nothing can withstand that temperature. And it looks to be approximately 16, million light years from Earth. You know, some BS like that. You've heard all the jargon, all the talk. These guys think they're super smart and everything else like that. And they trick us. They trick us and they do a damn good job at it. But as far as me, and I'm sure as far as the rest of you guys, we ain't falling for the trick no more. Kind of like the Who said, we won't be fooled again, right? At least we hope not. At least I hope not. I know you guys know who these guys are, right? This is Milli Vanilli. These are the guys minus that guy in the middle, right? These three, from left to the bottom to right, those are the guys that actually sang their songs. I don't even need to say anything more. You guys know what it is I'm trying to say, right? Everything we see on TV, everything we get from the news, how the hell we know we ain't being lied to the whole fucking time? Why do we give these guys any kind of credence, any kind of coverage, right? Why do we provide them that? And we keep getting fooled over and over and over again. All right, so I'm not going to get into all that. I wanted to round it off by saying, look at this. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. NASA's now in a bind, right? NASA's in a bind in that on the 29th of this month, so here in the next 18 days, they should be launching the Artemis shuttle to go where? To the moon. 240,000 miles away from Earth, the moon. While this is going on, don't you think with that telescope a million miles away, they can turn that telescope pointed at Earth and watch this space shuttle leave Earth and go to the moon? Don't you think that the space telescope can do that? We spent $10 billion to launch this joker up into the sky. We spend $10 billion to do this. And you mean to tell me, after 52 years from the first time we launched a space shuttle, quote unquote, to the moon, and it landed successfully and it returned those astronauts back to Earth successfully, that we can't spin that telescope around and give us a perfect shot of the Earth, the moon, the transit of the Artemis space shuttle going between the Earth and the moon? It can't do that. They're going to come up with an excuse. Mark my words. I promise you as to why they can't do that. Mark my words. What saith you? Let me know, YouTube.